democracy and not for imperialism. Yes, miss.
Thank you.
Ooh. You got to come over here a bit.
Yes, Michael, I would like to know if you accept the official story on 9/11 or if you have another opinion about who may have perpetrated it. And also, just personally, are there any modern-day journalists that you look up to? Thank you.
Well, you don't want to look up to any journalists. I mean, you know. 9/11, that's amazing. We went about, what, 8 or 9 questions before 9/11. The 9/11 question came up. Wow, that's amazing. I was at the INN conference in New York. I spoke at that. I spoke at the Deep Politics one in Santa Cruz, where they're all people, you know, false flag, and it's a conspiracy and such. My view is the same as Ray McGovern's, who also spoke there, which is we really need an investigation. There seem to be an awful lot of unanswered questions on both sides. You see, there are unanswered questions on both sides. But the critics don't have to answer all their questions. They don't have access to the documents and all. The government is under an obligation to answer their questions, and that's not happening. But I really don't know about 9/11. I don't know what happened. I do know that after 9/11, they had a perfect example of being more repressive than ever, you know. I remember coming back from Europe and get pulled out of line. I just got pulled out of line. The guy said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a writer." He said, "Name the title of the last book you wrote." This is at SFO Airport, San Francisco Airport, you know, 10 o'clock at night. Name the title of the last book. I didn't know I was a writer of books. Most writers are writers of all sorts. It wasn't my last book, I thought, but this is the title I want to tell him. I said, "The Assassination of Julius Caesar." And when I heard the word assassination, his eyes got buggered like that. I said, "The Assassination of Julius Caesar." He didn't know who Julius Caesar was, but he says, "All right, you go over there." And I went over there, and they open up my suitcase, and another guy comes over and he says, "How are you going to get home tonight?" I said, "I have a friend who's coming to pick me up." He said, "What's your friend's name?" I didn't want to tell him her name, you know. I was tempted to say, "Oh, his name is Muhammad Abdul. He's a student here. He's taking flying lessons, and nice kid, nice guy." And I would have been there all weekend, you know, or who knows. So I said, "It's a friend of mine. I really don't feel I have to give you her name." And he didn't press that and all that. But that kind of stuff is what's happening now. That they've 9/11. You want to count the number of times that George W. Bush used the phrase 9/11 in his political speeches, in his campaigns, and all that. 9/11, 9/11. They need an external threat to justify the repression that they perpetrate on us. These enemies are just precious to them. When the Soviet Union got overthrown and all communism and all that, and they had said there was Claire Sterling used to write the stuff, not an obscure right-wing, in the Washington Post and the New York Times, Claire Sterling, in the Parade magazine and such, cover stories, she'd say, there is an international world network of terrorism with its headquarters in Moscow. Well, after the whole thing fell and the reactionaries took over Moscow, where was the international? Why weren't they all lined up? The KGB opened up all its archives. Where was this network? Where were all these terrorists? But that was pumping along. And then after that was over, after the communist threat was gone, there was a period there. They were panicking. They were saying, "Well, we've got to find, where's the threat? We've got to get a threat. We've got to get the people scared again." Like we said about, as Alexander Hamilton said, get them to rally around the flag, and the flag is wrapped around the president. So that's what 9/11 is really about. The particulars, though, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain. Let's just take 1 or 2 more questions, because the pay isn't that good. See, I got a market sense, too. You know? Yes, sir. Since I called on your friend, I'll call on you, too. he's saying people are so distracted by advertising and consumerism and this, that, and the other, I mean, movies and what is that called? Twittering, tweeting, and all that. Yeah. Pretty soon, nobody have to talk to anybody else. When we were coming here, Chris and I, we saw two young people coming by, and they were both talking on their cell phones to other people. I mean, they were walking with each other, and they were talking. Well, I mean, people. It's really remarkable, though, sometimes, despite all the propaganda and the distraction, that you get people, by a very large majority, saying, no, we don't want to send troops to Iran. No, we don't want to send American troops to Iraq. They said that. They didn't want troops. I remember that in November of 90, I'm forgetting the years now. The next to last year of George Herbert Walker's 97. After the Gulf War, he was trying to get America to get into a war against Saddam Hussein, who had just moved into Kuwait. And overwhelmingly, the American people said, we don't want to get into a war against this guy, Saddam Hussein, in Kuwait or Iraq or wherever. And then in that November, they ran a poll, and the poll read, I remember it very distinctly. I wrote it up, too, somewhere. The poll said, if Saddam Hussein has, and the phrase weapons of mass destruction had not yet come into vogue, they said, if he has nuclear weapons, which he's aiming at the West, would you support an American invasion? And then it shifted from 70% no to 70% yes. It's like saying, if so-and-so is going to kill you, would you support taking action against him? What else are you going to say, And then they started hitting it. He got nuclear weapons. He's going to bomb us. He's worse than Hitler and all that. And they've done this with Noriega in Panama. They did this with Milosevic in Yugoslavia. They've done this with Aristide in Haiti. They've done it with Saddam Hussein, who was a terrible, horrible, ruthless torturer when he was working for the CIA. And it's never mentioned in the media that during his worst years, when he was doing most of his murdering and torturing, he was CIA. He was the one who overthrew the Iraqi democratic coalition that was running that country. That's another thing they never tell you, that Iraq already had democracy. They don't need to be taught. There's a 5,000-year civilization. They don't need to be taught by us how to have democracy. They had it. And Saddam Hussein came in and he killed every constitutionalist, every Democrat, or drove them into exile or underground. And he did all that, and he was doing it for the CIA. And he only became an enemy. He only became an enemy when he got out of line on the oil quotas. He wanted a bigger part of the market. There's another lie. They told American people, you won't get any oil, you won't get any gas for your car. It was just the opposite. George Herbert Walker Bush, the old man, was worried about Iraqi oil coming on the market. It would crash the prices. There was a surplus of oil at the time. And Saddam Hussein wanted a larger oil quota, which means he wanted to sell more oil to us. It was just totally turned around. Never mentioned. Those issues are just totally left unmentioned and undeveloped. So the American people again and again get misled, and they're misinformed, and that's why it's very hard for us. But we have to keep speaking out, keeping yourself informed. If they get your mind, they get everything. I mean, they're trying to get your home, your pocketbook, your taxes, your this, your that, your wages, and all that. Make sure you're protecting your mind, too, at the same time. Yes. What? Inside Job. It's an excellent movie. I just saw it 2 nights ago about the 2008 crash on Wall Street. Documentary, and they really name names and they show people, and it's very nice. So if the movie Inside Job comes to your local theater, go see it, or if it doesn't, go rent it as a DVD or something or whatever. Yeah. Yes.